10 spine-chilling small-town horrors, sinister secrets revealed that you won't believe exist. Amelia sat at the rickety kitchen table, the morning sun weakly streaming through the cracked window. She pulled her son Tommy close, the rustling of every leaf outside sounding like whispers of buried secrets. Mill Creek, seemingly quaint with its charming houses and white picket fences, harbored terrors hidden beneath its surface. The creaky floorboards gave a warning of each footstep, as if the house itself was sighing from the weight of its mysteries. The knot in Amelia's stomach twisted tighter. Something was wrong. Every heartbeat felt like a countdown. Lately, the town was suffocated by a pervasive dread. People spoke in hushed tones at the diner where she worked, eyes darting to the dim streetlight flickering outside Amelia's own home, casting jagged shadows that danced menacingly at night. Just last week, a neighbor vanished without a trace, and those whispers had become a sick joke on the townsfolk's lips. Who would be next? The palpable sense of unease clung to her like the heavy autumn air. Sorting through the pile of junk mail one afternoon, her fingers froze over an envelope lacking a return address. Goosebumps prickled her skin as she tore it open, revealing a note that sent shivers racing down her spine. It detailed a chilling history of her neighbors, accounts of unsolved disappearances and strange rituals, words spilling out like poison. Amelia's pulse quickened. Surely it was a prank, a cruel joke from bored teens. But the insistent whisper of her instincts warned otherwise. Days turned into a blur of heart-pounding anxiety. Each glance at Miss Carter, the seemingly sweet old lady next door who often offered them cookies and help, now sent a jolt of apprehension through Amelia. What was hidden behind Miss Carter's warm smile? One night, after a harrowing shift, she learned that the woman had turned the struggling families of Mill Creek into pawns in her twisted game. Goosebumps erupted at the thought. She felt trapped, proof dwindling against the flickering shadows enveloping them. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The evening descended, eerie silence thickening the air. The pounding of her heart matched the relentless ticking of the clock as a soft thud echoed outside. Fear squeezed her as she glanced through the window, catching sight of shadowy figures gathering in the alley behind the abandoned school. The building stood like a watchful beast, its gaping windows observing her with almost sentient malice. Ghost stories filled her mind, echoes of the missing neighbor intertwined with her frantic breaths. She felt trapped in an unseen web, each sticky thread pulling taut. Tommy, oblivious, played with his toys in the corner, but she tightened her grip on his tiny hand. Her instinct screamed hide, flee, run. As she turned, her phone buzzed. An anonymous message taunted her. "You think you're safe? Look again." The words seared into her heart. The monsters that lurked in Mill Creek weren't just in her nightmares. They were part of her reality, hiding in plain sight. Could she really protect Tommy when everyone around her seemed to be wearing a mask? The evening air thickened as darkness crept in, cocooning them both. One question pulsed through her mind: just how far would she go to uncover the twisted truths of Mill Creek? Night fell like a shroud over Mill Creek, thick and suffocating. The shadows grew longer, intertwining with the darkness, and Amelia's nerves sparked with every sound. The wind wailed through the trees, whispering secrets she dared not understand. She kept Tommy close, his small frame trembling slightly, though he pretended to be absorbed in his toys. A loud crack echoed from outside, a pathetic reminder of how fragile safety was. She turned, urgency prickling at her skin, and peered out the window again. The alley, now dim and foreboding, held only silence. Had she imagined it? Her trembling hands gripped the curtain harder, her knuckles turning white as the nights of turmoil played in her mind, each incident tying her deeper into a web she couldn't escape. Just then, the phone buzzed again. This time, the screen lit with a new message: "Tonight, we gather no more games." It sent icy tendrils of fear down her spine. The words were a dark promise, urging her to act. "Mom?" Tommy's voice was small, laced with confusion. He looked up, sensing her anxiety. "Everything's okay, sweetheart. Just stay close, alright?" Amelia replied, doing her best to sound calm while her heart raced. The thought crossed her mind not just about keeping Tommy safe, but also about confronting the darkness lurking at the town's heart. The note, those missing neighbors, the chilling aura that clung to every resident. If she really wanted answers, she couldn't hide any longer. Summoning every ounce of courage, Amelia turned off the lights, shrouding them in darkness. She slipped into her jacket, covering Tommy snugly, and moved toward the back door. "We're going for a little walk." "Just a quick one," she whispered, feeling the air thicken around them as they stepped outside. The cold hit her, sharp and biting. The shadows felt alive as they made their way into the alley, surrounded by the oppressive atmosphere. Goosebumps rose on Amelia's arms. Each step was like a drumbeat echoing through the silence would a predator hear her approach. She held Tommy's hand tightly, wishing she could shield him from the unfolding horrors. They approached the abandoned school, where a flicker of light escaped through the cracked windows. Her pulse quickened, not just from fear but the intoxicating urgency of discovery. Voices, the yearning whispers of the gathering wrapped around her. Amelia felt the urge to run, to turn back to the safety of her home, but the piquing curiosity held her feet in place. "Mommy, I don't like this," Tommy whispered, his grip tightening around her fingers. "It's going to be okay, honey." But in her heart, she could feel the lie curling like a serpent. They crept closer, stealthily peeking around the corner. Inside, silhouettes danced in the flickering light, shadowy shapes engaged in a ritual that seemed both alien and horrifyingly intimate. Their low murmuring sent shivers through Amelia's spine, fear tangling with newfound dread. What were they doing? A sharp scream pierced the night, dragging her back to reality. The sound slipped through the cracks in her armor, turning her fear into raw panic. Her mind raced. Was it the missing neighbor? Was she too late? Just then, a head turned in their direction. The flickering light illuminated a face that felt eerily familiar, eyes wide with a madness that sent her heart racing. Before she could react, a new message popped up on her phone: "Join us or suffer the consequences." Amelia felt her resolve crumble as the eyes fixated on her, a wave of unease crashing over her. The question lashed at her mind: could she protect her son from the evils of Mill Creek, or would their names soon be added to the list of the lost? Behind them, more footsteps echoed, signaling doom as the darkness began to close in. Would they be caught in the night, or could they find a way out? Amelia's breath caught in her throat as shadows danced closer, the flicker of dim light casting grotesque shapes that closed in like grasping hands. She pulled Tommy behind her, heart pounding like a wild drum. "Stay quiet," she whispered, her voice trembling as terror wrapped around them like a vice. The murmuring from inside grew louder, a chant that twisted her stomach. Words she couldn't quite decipher bubbled like poison. What were they invoking? What lay within those walls? She could sense the darkness pulling her closer, urging her to join the dance, but her instincts screamed to flee. She edged back, peering through the splintered wood of the doorframe. Through the grimy glass, she could see their faces now distorted by shadows but vividly alive with a fervor that froze her blood. They wore masks, smooth and featureless, yet their eyes burned with an inner fire, filled with a manic hunger for something that made Amelia's skin crawl. Something terrible was about to happen. She had to get Tommy out. But just as she turned to pull him away, a figure emerged from the crowd, pointing straight at them. The voices fell silent, an unnatural hush settling over the gathering like a shroud. "Look!" The figure rasped, voice strained, the mask hiding a face, but dread radiating from every limb. "She's here! The one who has what we want." Amelia's heart sank. What did they want from her? She tightened her grip on Tommy, wishing the shadows could swallow her whole, but they stood frozen, rooted by fear. The strident voice sliced through her panic, and she saw a flash of something metallic in the masked figure's hand, a knife, glinting faintly under the flicker of the candlelight. "Run!" she shouted, snapping out of the paralyzing dread. Adrenaline surged as she turned, yanking Tommy's small body behind her. They stumbled back and sprinted toward the alley, but the night was alive now, filled with echoes of their pursuers. "Don't let them escape," came the voice, the chilling command chasing them like a dark storm. The footsteps behind them were closer now, gaining speed, heavy against the pavement as if each footfall shook with malicious intent. Amelia darted through the maze of the alley. Every shadow seemed to reach for them, clawing at her sanity. The world narrowed to just her and Tommy, his terrified breath mingling with her own. She could feel the weight of despair closing in, thick and suffocating. Just ahead, the alley opened into the street. Would it be a sanctuary or another trap? "Mommy, they're coming!" Tommy cried, his voice a desperate wail electrifying her resolve. Amelia turned to see the figures spilling out from the school, illuminated in the harshness of the streetlight, masks gleaming like eyes of hungry beasts. They surged forward, frantic and wild. With a surge of nerve, she pushed them both into the open street, praying for safety ahead. But the night echoed with horror. The town felt alive, closing in around her, and the chill couldn't be shaken off. She glanced back just in time to see one of them break away from the group, speeding toward them, the knife glinting like a death mark under the streetlight. "Tommy, run!" she screamed, but as she turned back, a shadow fell across her, blocking her path forward. Suddenly, everything froze. Amelia's heart stopped as she recognized the figure in front of her, the same face she had seen through the window earlier in the night, eyes wild and unhinged, masked but somehow still familiar. "Join us," it whispered, voice soft yet commanding, the knife held out like an offering. "Or watch your son become one of us." In that split second, Amelia's world spun wildly. She felt a gripping dread that promised her nothing but despair, a choice to make a life for her son or her own soul. Will she sacrifice her sanity to save them both, or will the darkness of Mill Creek claim yet another victim? Tommy's sobs cut through the tension like a knife, raw and jagged. Amelia's thoughts flared into a wild panic, and she knew deep down that whatever this creature wanted, it was tied to the darkness surrounding them. There was no escaping it. "Please, no!" she cried, instinct kicking in as she shoved Tommy behind her, shielding him with her body. The masked figure's eyes seemed to bore into her soul, a sinister calmness radiating from it like a predator teasing its prey. "Join us," it repeated, the softness of its voice starkly contrasted by the glimmering blade poised before them. "You can save him. You have something we desire." "What do you want?" Amelia's voice quivered, betraying her fear, but she stood firm. The figure leaned closer, its breath hot, tainted with the fador of decay. "The gift, the essence of life within you. We will protect you. We will protect him. But you must give in willingly." Amelia's chest tightened. The whispers of the crowd began to stir, filing in around her like smoke. She could hear them now, their chant rising, throbbing with the weight of their collective desire. The word sacrifice echoed over and over, a macabre lullaby sending fresh chills down her spine. "Tommy, listen to me," she said, crouching low to meet his frightened eyes. "Whatever happens, you run. You run and don't look back." "Mommy, no!" he pleaded, tears spilling down his cheeks. "Do it!" she hissed through clenched teeth, the urgency clawing at her. But just as she stood, the figure raised the knife, and a sudden hush fell over the crowd, their eyes fixated on the blade, hungry and expectant. "Step forward, Amelia," the figure urged, a ghastly grin stretching across its features, hidden beneath the mask. "Join us, before it's too late." And suddenly, Amelia felt it an undeniable pull, an ancient thread tugging at her very being. Shadows swirled around her, dark tendrils of night beckoning her to embrace the madness. Power surged through her, a tempting warmth that contradicted the icy dread gripping her heart. Her legs trembled as she fought against the urge to step forward. Part of her wanted to flee, to protect Tommy at all costs, but another part, a growing darkness inside, whispered sweet nothings, promises of safety and strength. "No!" she shouted, defiant against the madness. She spun around, grabbing Tommy's hand tightly, searching for an escape amidst the jagged alleyways that wound like serpents around them. Don't let them take you! Just run! Before she could move, a howl erupted from behind, the sound piercing the night like shattered glass. They surged forward, their masked faces glowing with fervor, the darkness consuming them whole. Flee, child! One voice called out, breaking through the chaos, laced with urgency. You must find the light, before they find you. In that moment, doubt flickered within her. Where is the light? Where is safety? Amelia's panic morphed into raw survival instinct. She yanked Tommy, pulling him along her, their feet pounding against the pavement as they fled deeper into the heart of Mill Creek's treacherous night. The crowd swarmed behind them, relentless and frenzied. Each step felt like they were running through syrup, the weight of fear dragging them back as the figures contorted into nightmarish shapes, screaming chants that clawed at her sanity. Amelia's mind raced. Was there a way out? Was there hope? The town slithered around them, a labyrinth of terror where treachery lurked in every shadow. Turn here! She shouted, veering into an alley, desperate to lose them in the darkness. Closer! They had to get closer. But then, a piercing scream shattered the air. Amelia froze. Tommy pulled at her, the terror in his eyes reflected in the hollowness of her own. Their escape route had collapsed, no more space to run. An ominous figure loomed ahead, its form emerging from the shadows, a chilling smile creeping beneath the mask. You can't hide forever. Amelia's heart thudded violently in her chest. What had she done? What had she unleashed? But the darkness of Mill Creek wasn't he done with them yet. Keep running! A voice commanded, but who could it be? The weight of more questions settled heavily as the night closed in. She could hear the chorus of chanting growing louder behind them, each echo wrapping tighter around her throat. Could they truly escape the clutches of this hell? Time was slipping through her fingers like sand, and the choice of survival hung heavily over them. The air was electric with fear as the shadows deepened. Would they find sanctuary, or would they plunge deeper into the abyss of terror that sought to claim them? Amelia clenched Tommy's hand, determination replacing despair. What awaited them around the next corner? The alley swallowed them in darkness, its fetid air wrapping around them like a shroud. Amelia could barely see, but she felt the uneven cobblestones beneath her feet, urging her onward. Tommy kept close, his small frame pressed against her side, quaking with every breath. Mommy! I'm scared, he whimpered, his voice a thread of innocence in the thick anxiety surrounding them. Just hold on to me, she whispered back, forcing her voice to stay steady despite the panic brewing in her chest. Their desperate flight was frantic, but she felt the weight of shadows lurking just behind. Each turn felt like a game of fate, the stakes growing higher with every pulse of chanting that reverberated through the lanes. Another scream echoed from the distance, hollow and drenched in anguish. It sent ice through her veins. She gritted her teeth, pushing the fear down as her mind raced. Where were they? What kind of hell was this? Sudden laughter cut through the darkness as they finally stumbled into an open square, a faint glimmer of moonlight illuminating the space. Amelia blinked, gripping Tommy's hand so tight it could leave marks. In front of them was a towering statue, grotesque and monstrous, an angel with wings spread wide, its face contorted in eternal agony. It seemed to observe them, judging them, a sentinel of despair. Look! Tommy gasped, pointing at the ground. Amelia followed his gaze and gasped. Scrawled in blood-red paint was a warning, don't trust the light. Another figure appeared in the shadows, moving with purposeful grace. The mask barely glinted under the faint moonlight, but the eyes were vibrant pools of malice. Running doesn't save you. You'll have to confront your fears here, in the heart of darkness. Get away! Amelia screamed, pulling Tommy closer as she scanned for any exit, any glimmer of hope. But the chanting grew louder, the crowd's ecstasy palpable and crashing like waves around them. Suddenly, the masked figure lunged forward with the knife, but Amelia bolted to the side just in time, the blade grazing her shoulder. Pain shot through her, an electric agony that sparked a primal rage. She spun back, anger overcoming fear, and charged straight at the figure, the chaos around them spurring her on. "Tommy, behind the statue!" she yelled, shoving him toward the cover. He ducked just in time as the masked figure stumbled back, momentarily thrown off balance. The crowd surged from the alleyway, faces twisted in shadow, their chants morphing into a cacophony that throbbed in her temples. "Join us! Give your gift!" Amelia's heart raced. The earlier whispers dripped with a sickly sweetness, but panic ignited her instincts. She scanned the square. A glow flickered ahead, dim but undeniable. The light, she thought. It was a strange glow, illuminating the very spot where the statue's feet met the ground. A trapdoor? A way out? "Tommy! This way!" she shouted, yanking her son from behind the statue. He looked up at her, uncertainty twisting his features. "What if they come?" "They will. But we can't stay here." They sprinted towards the glow, every heartbeat drowning out the madness around them. Amelia's pulse screamed in her ears. They reached the light source, revealing the hatch set into the ground. As she jerked it open, a bitter rush of wind forced her back. It whispered secrets, lures, threats as a phantom crackle danced up her spine. What lay beneath? Was it the safe haven they desperately sought, or another layer of this terrifying nightmare? "Go!" she urged Tommy, shoving him forward, fear wrestling with the hope that maybe, just maybe, they could escape. But as he slipped through the opening, a terrifying thought gripped her. Was this yet another trap? Another way to bind them to the darkness that demanded sacrifice? The chanting boomed, fierce and demanding, the shadows coiling as they surged closer, hungry for despair. Amelia's breath hitched. What choice did she really have? As she dove after Tommy, the world above vanished, swallowed by darkness and dread. They landed with a thud, and Amelia's heart raced. What awaited them in the void beneath the earth? The heavy thrum of the crowd resounded above, the final echo of her world fading into a chilling silence. Amelia gasped as she hit the dusty floor of the underground chamber. The air was thick, heavy with a musty scent that clawed at her throat. Instinctively, she reached for Tommy, her hand clasping nothing but emptiness. Panic surged through her as she called for him. "Tommy! Where are you?" A faint whimper echoed back, but it was swallowed by the oppressive silence. She blinked against the dim light that flickered sporadically, casting eerie shadows on the stone walls. "Tommy!" she called again, her voice wavering. "Over here, Mommy!" His voice was small, lost, but seemed to come from somewhere in the dark. She felt the fear clawing at her chest, each beat of her heart quickening as she stumbled toward his voice, her eyes desperately searching. As she moved deeper into the chamber, she began to see shapes emerging from the darkness. Figures hunched over on the ground, their faces obscured by shadows, whispering incoherent words that crawled underneath her skin. Was this what they had escaped to? What lay waiting beneath the earth? "Tommy!" she urged, voice barely above a whisper now. Each syllable felt heavy with the weight of her fear. Suddenly, the faint glow of a lantern flickered to life, revealing the chamber's interior. The sight made her breath catch. There were dozens of figures seated in a circle, all looking inward, their hollow eyes trained on something between them. In the center, some kind of altar rose before her, slick with dark stains and surrounded by gaudy, seemingly cursed trinkets. It looked like a shrine made of despair, the kind built on suffering and pain, a celebration of anguish. Amelia's stomach churned. "Stay back!" she shouted, putting herself between the figures and the flickering lantern. "What do you want?" Her heart raced, and she could feel the invisible weight of their gaze probing her soul. One figure turned slowly, the face obscured by a ragged hood. It rolled forward, its movement unsettling, a marionette dragged by strings of shadow. "You've arrived," it rasped, a chill weaving through Amelia's bones. Its voice sounded ancient, dripping with malice. "The gift calls for you." Tommy dashed out from behind her, his small silhouette jerking forward as he reached for the altar. "Mommy, look!" he squealed, pointing at a bloodied cloth that lay strewn over an object shaped like a twisted heart. "Tommy!" "No!" Amelia lunged for him, panic igniting as she yanked him back. "Don't touch anything!" But it was too late. The moment Tommy's tiny fingers brushed against the altar's surface, an ear-splitting shriek erupted from the gathered figures. They lifted their heads, eyes wide and lusting, as if they'd just found their prey. The air turned electric, crackling with an awful energy, making Amelia's skin prickle. "You've awakened it!" one of the figures howled, clawing at its throat. "Now it demands a sacrifice." A tide of shadows began to rise from the floor, tendrils reaching out as if hungry for flesh. Amelia felt their cold embrace against her legs. "Run!" she screamed, dragging Tommy with her as they zigzagged through the chaos. Behind them, the sound of chanting flooded back, louder and more chaotic, drowning out everything else. The chamber pulsed with a heartbeat that mirrored her own, each thump more powerful and frantic as they stumbled toward an exit, desperate for escape. Then, out of the corner of her eye, something glinted in the flickering light. It was a knife, an ornate dagger nestled among the gravel, its blade glistening, beckoning her with a terrible allure. "Mommy! We have to go!" Tommy cried, tugging at her sleeve, his little body shaking. But Amelia hesitated, torn between the way out and the power that awaited her in that cursed dagger. What was the cost? What did it mean to give the gift? She felt the shadows pulling her, tugging her back toward the altar. "Stay away from it!" she yelled, pulling Tommy close. They sprinted toward a narrow tunnel on the other side, but before she could reach it, a figure lunged, its hand outstretched. What would she have to face next? With a single choice upon her, she turned, heart hammering as she fought against the darkness and the terrible whispers closing in around them. Was there truly any escaping this hell, or was the horror just beginning? Amelia's heart raced as she shoved Tommy behind her. She could barely see the figure lunging at them, but she felt the chill of its presence creeping closer. The rest of the shadowy figures rose, an unsettling symphony of rasps and whimpers shaking the walls around them. "Mommy!" Tommy whimpered, gripping her waist with trembling hands. With a surge of adrenaline, Amelia turned, her instincts screaming for escape. "This way!" she shouted, half expecting the ground to swallow them whole. They darted toward the narrow tunnel, its black maw a promise of hope or perhaps a deeper abyss. Shrill cries followed, mingled with frantic whispers that clawed at her sanity. The walls felt like they were closing in as she shoved Tommy ahead of her, the scent of damp earth and decay wrapping around them like a shroud. The echoing footsteps of the figures grew louder behind them, faster, almost a pulse that matched the throbbing in her head. Time swirled, seconds stretching into an eternity as darkness coiled around her. "Don't look back, keep running," Amelia urged, her voice cracking under the weight of her fear. Finally, they reached a bend in the tunnel, the flickering of the lanterns behind them fading into shadow. Breathless, she glanced back. The figures paused, their eyes still fixed on her, an unholy hunger burning in their depths. It was as if they were tethered to the altar, unable to follow completely. "Mommy!" Tommy's voice broke the tension. "What are they?" "I don't know, sweetheart." She pulled him closer, her pulse quickening. "But we need to keep moving." They stumbled forward, the passage narrowing further, and the air thickened like honey. It was suffocating. Amelia felt as if the walls were whispering, their secrets curling into her ears like smoke. The deeper they went, the more she sensed it, a restless energy, a whisper of something dark lying in wait. What had Tommy awakened? Suddenly a rumble echoed from the tunnel behind them, an ominous growl that sent a jolt of terror through her spine. Something was coming. "Faster!" she hissed, nearly dragging Tommy along as they plunged deeper into the darkness, driven by primal fear. Each step felt like a gamble, the ground threatening to betray them at every turn. She could hear movement behind them, shuffling, scraping sounds. The darkness itself seemed alive, shifting and breathing. As they rushed forward, they reached a heavy wooden door, ornate carvings twisting into grotesque faces. It swung slightly ajar, revealing a dimly lit room filled with strange artifacts, jars filled with dark liquids, flickering candles, and animal bones strewn about. "Mommy, what is this place?" Tommy's voice trembled, wide eyes reflecting the weak light. Before she could answer, The ground lurched beneath her, and the door slammed shut with a deafening thud. Amelia stumbled back, heart pounding like a war drum. No! No! She pounded on it, panic clawing at her throat. Open up! Please! The shadows outside converged, a whispering mass pressing against the door, seemingly trying to enter. They were here, they knew where she was. Suddenly, the symbols on the door shimmered as if the air itself had thickened. A faint voice twisted in the shadows. To leave, you must offer a gift. Don't listen! Amelia shouted, pulling Tommy back to her chest. Stay close! Tommy's body shook uncontrollably, and through his fear, Amelia knew they had come too far. What was the cost? What would they have to give to get out alive? A faint glow emanated from a cracked jar on a nearby shelf. It beckoned her, a glowing liquid swirling within. What if it held the key to their escape? But at what price? As Amelia stared into the jar, time felt suspended. Could she trust what loomed behind the door, or would they pay for her decision in blood? Amelia held her breath, heart racing, still undecided, when a low growl resonated through the door, vibrating ominously. The darkness thickened, and something whispered her name, inviting her just as the door splintered. What horrifying truth lay beyond the threshold? Would she make the sacrifice to uncover it? Amelia's mind raced, heart pounding louder than the growl behind the door. The edges of her vision blurred as adrenaline surged through her veins. She couldn't just stand there. The shadows were creeping beneath the cracks of the door, long fingers stretching out like they were searching for flesh. Tommy, we have to make a choice, she said, urgency ringing in her voice. The flickering light from the jar cast distorted shadows on the walls, flickering like the pulse of her own fear. Do you want to try that? Tommy's eyes narrowed, filled with confusion and dread as he glanced between the jar and the door. What if it's bad? Like them? He stammered, pointing to the shadows that slithered closer, hissing promises or threats Amelia couldn't understand. Everything is bad right now. She tore her gaze from Tommy and looked back at the door, her breathing coming fast and shallow. The whispering outside grew louder, a cacophony of moans, each one more desperate than the last. We can't stay here. Without waiting for Tommy's answer, she lunged forward, grasping the jar. The liquid inside glinted eerily, a pulsating glow like a heartbeat. It felt warm in her hands, almost alive. A sense of dread washed through her, but something deeper tugged at her core. Amelia, a voice hissed from the darkness. It was soft but cutting, slicing through her thoughts. Offer it up, it's the only way. Shut up! She yelled, clenching the jar tighter, feeling the glass bite into her palm. The shadowy figures laughed then, a twisted, cruel sound that echoed down the passage, swirling into her head. I don't want to give anything, Tommy cried, his voice rising in panic. They all hurt us. A light tugged at her heart. Each heartbeat echoed her fear. What did it require as a gift? A piece of her? A piece of Tommy? The shadows pressed harder against the door, their whispers intertwining with her thoughts, sinking into her mind like poison. Mommy! Tommy's voice cracked with terror, breaking through. Quickly, Amelia turned to him. Listen! You have to trust me. She lowered herself, meeting his gaze. I won't let them take you. I promise. Just do what I say. Anger and desperation clashed in her chest. The walls, the door, everything seemed to vibrate with a life of its own, as if they were all watching, waiting. In that instant, she had an idea. If I drink it, maybe it will be enough. Maybe we can escape together. Tommy's face twisted in horror. But you could die. Better me than you. The words flew out, harsher than intended. But with each second, darker truths rolled through her mind. How much longer could they hold out? Would her sacrifice help? The growls quickened, becoming a rhythm, matching the pulsing light from the jar. I'll do it! Amelia raised the jar, the glowing liquid within swirling as if it contained trapped souls. The voices outside howled in protest, urging her to reconsider. Just stay close, sweetie. With trembling hands, she brought the jar to her lips, thoughts racing faster than her heartbeat. She hesitated, the shadows darting closer, seeping through the slits of the door. Their whispers turned sinister, words overlapping, creating a hypnotic chant. "Drink, give, be free, mommy!" Tommy shouted, his voice desperate. "Don't!" But in that moment of lucid desperation, Amelia closed her eyes and tipped the jar. The liquid flowed past her lips, warm and laced with an ethereal essence. It burned like fire going down her throat, searing through her, igniting something deep inside. Suddenly, the door slammed open, revealing a nightmarish figure shrouded in darkness, its eyes glowing like embers. It stepped into the room, a monstrous grin stretching across its grotesque face. With a sickening feeling, Amelia realized the price of her decision. "What have you done?" it shrieked, the sound blasting through her skull. And then everything blurred away just as the darkness surged forward, wrapping around her and Tommy, ready to pull them into the abyss. What would they face next? Would the sacrifice save them, or plunge them deeper into horror? Amelia's senses exploded as the darkness enveloped her. It wasn't just the weight of shadows, it was alive, pulsing, breathing. The air thickened, charged with dread, wrapping around her like a suffocating blanket. Tommy's terrified scream was consumed by the sinister chorus of whispers rising around them, echoing off unseen walls. "Mommy!" His voice cracked through the clutches of the dark, a beacon of innocence in this hellish landscape. Amelia reached for him, her fingers brushing his trembling arm. The inclination to shield him coursed through her. But the whispers only grew louder, swirling in a chaotic symphony of anguish and ecstasy. "Give us more," the voices chimed, seductive and cruel. Sacrifice, life, love, an image flashed in her mind. Tommy, safe and smiling. The sound of laughter. Amelia staggered, reeling from a sudden wave of agony, a glimpse of what she might provide beyond her own life, a choice heavier than anything she could bear. "Tommy! Listen to me!" She fought to keep her voice steady. "We have to find a way out. Stay close." Yet her words felt empty, swallowed by the growing shadows and the fiendish creature lurking just beyond the flickering light. The figure loomed closer, its presence suffocating. It reached out, fingers slender and dark like smoke, stretching toward the jar in her trembling hands. "You think you understand what you've unleashed?" it taunted, its voice oozing with venom. "You have given yourself to us, foolish girl. I'll never give him to you." She shoved Tommy behind her, a desperate instinct overtaking her. The darkness snarled, rippling like water disturbed by a stone. The jar glowed fiercely, as if it recognized her defiance. "Tommy, I need you to be brave. We have to fight," she urged, her voice steadying, dredging deep for resolve. "Fight what, Mommy?" His small body quaked against her, eyes wide with confusion and terror. The creature stepped back, a flicker of uncertainty crossing its monstrous grin. "You believe power can stand against us? You are but a candle in the abyss." It grinned wider, revealing jagged teeth like tombstones stacked in a grave. Spurred by a sudden surge of fury, Amelia faced the creature fully. "I'm not afraid of you." The foolishness of her proclamation bubbled in her throat, but she couldn't let it show. "Afraid? No. You should be terrified, dear Amelia." The creature lunged forward, shadows whirling around it in a tempest. From the swirling mass, twisted forms began to peel away, scampering into the corners of the room, each one a nightmare manifested. "Amelia!" Tommy squeaked, his voice small against the rising chaos as shadows broke from the mass and darted toward them, claws outstretched. In a moment of desperation, Amelia lifted the jar high, new resolve igniting within. "If you want something, then come and take it!" she shouted, surprising herself with the strength of her defiance. The whispers recoiled, a momentary flicker of dread darting across the creature's face. "Foolish girl," it hissed, the words laced with venom. "You'll regret it." A sharp pain splintered through her head, the voices growing louder, demanding, pulling her back into that dark place. Through it all, Amelia could feel the warmth of Tommy's hand in hers, a tether that anchored her amidst the storm. They were entwined in this horrific dance, each dragging the other along. But the shadows were relentless. They climbed higher, reaching for the jar, pixelating around Tommy, tendrils creeping along the walls. She could feel an insidious energy tugging at her mind. Moments stretched, pulse racing as she struggled to keep the darkness at bay, every ounce of her will grinding against the gravity of despair. Amelia, a soft voice wafted down through the din, somehow familiar yet unsettling, pulling on memories that felt buried. You can join them, all you have to do is let go. In that moment, Amelia's heart faltered. Could they truly win? Would the shadows consume them, or could they carve out an escape from this nightmare? And so she hesitated, the jar quivering with unspent energy. Time slowed, each second thick with dread. Was there something left to learn? What deeper horror lurked in the dark corners of this curse? With fear clawing at her throat, she was about to find out. Amelia's heart thundered as the shadows writhed, their shapes twisting like nightmarish serpents. She felt the fabric of her reality straining, frail and close to shattering. The whispers clawed at the edges of her sanity, weaving chilling promises of power and serenity. Yet Tommy's small hand in hers was her lifeline, igniting a fierce determination that pushed back against the encroaching dark. "Stay close, Tommy. Stay together," she muttered, her voice barely rising above the cacophony of voices demanding her submission. She had to focus. The jar still glimmered in her hand, a shard of hope amid despair, pulsating with a warmth that felt strangely alive. If they could just harness its power. At that moment, the creature lunged again. With a primal scream, Amelia hurled the jar towards the beast. It shattered against the ground, golden light exploding in a blinding flash. The shadows recoiled, screeching as the warm glow spread like wildfire, illuminating the chamber with an otherworldly brightness. "Now, Tommy!" Amelia shouted, pushing him toward the light. The shadows tried to spiral around them, but they were caught in the radiant barrier that sprang from the remnants of the jar. As they sprinted toward the heart of the illumination, they could feel the shadows shriveling back, losing their grip as the golden light pulsed like a heartbeat. But even in this ephemeral safety, Amelia could taste the bitterness of uncertainty. What lay ahead? Would the light lead them to salvation or further doom? "Mommy, where are we going?" Tommy's voice trembled, but there was a spark of hope laced through his fear. "The way out, I promise. Just trust me," she urged, not daring to look back. She felt the warmth sizzle against her skin, fueling her resolve as they dashed into the projected glow. The darkness howled, a pitiful sound like a wounded beast. "You cannot escape. You belong to us," the creature yelled, its voice soaked in rage as the fraying tendrils clawed at the edges of the light. But Amelia, tears streaming, didn't stop. They burst toward a looming archway shimmering with radiant light. The shadowy figures faltered, caught in a frenzied state, but they wouldn't be able to follow. They were fracturing like glass under pressure. "Keep running!" Amelia shouted, feeling the adrenaline build. She could almost taste freedom. The archway was close now, hope incarnate, an escape route from the grim depths of her nightmares. Just as they reached the arch, a powerful force lashed out, knocking Amelia to the ground. She scrambled back up, breathless. "Run, Tommy! Run!" Tommy hesitated, glancing back at the darkness clawing at them. It was grotesque, faces twisted in agony as they screamed for her. "Mommy!" he cried, fear flooded his voice. "Go!" she demanded, forcing herself to stay steady. But fear sliced through her heart like glass. She couldn't lose him. Tommy darted into the archway, and at that instant the world shifted. A blinding flash erupted, enveloping them in warmth and light, washing away the chilling dread that had plagued them. Darkness swirled behind, clawing at the brilliance, but the light felt impenetrable. Amelia surged forward and felt a force pulling them together. They burst through, tumbling into a new reality. The air was fresh, vibrating with life, a forgotten song. The bright sun above pierced through their fears, the kind of sunny warmth that promised safety. They stumbled onto a quiet street, familiar yet transformed. The green leaves brushed against each other in the gentle breeze, and the chirping of birds filled the air with sweet notes. Mill Creek had never looked so alive. "Are we free?" Tommy panted, looking around in disbelief, his face streaked with dirt, tears, and hope. Amelia knelt and hugged him tight. "Yes, sweetheart. We're safe." She glanced back at the now distant shadows, receding like a nightmare at dawn. A weight lifted off their shoulders, but a question remained in Amelia's heart. They had faced the darkness and survived, but what would happen now? She felt the scar of that night etched deeply within, a reminder of the sinister secrets lurking in Mill Creek. "Mommy," Tommy looked up, his small hand gripping her own, "will they come back?" "No," she breathed, a lump in her throat. "We weathered the storm, Tommy. We're stronger now. But we will never forget what we faced." The street felt ordinary, the sound of children laughing echoed around them, neighbors waved as they moved about their routines, but Amelia knew the truth. Each smile cast shadows, and she understood that evil often hides in plain sight. This was their home, but she would keep her eyes open. As they walked hand in hand, Amelia thought of those who didn't escape, and the whispers that still lingered in the recesses of her mind. But now, she held on to a flicker of light, a beacon of hope forged through their fear. Their journey wouldn't end here. They were alive, but the fight to keep their lives intact had just begun. And with that, they turned down their street, ready to face whatever mysteries lay ahead together. So, what do you think? This is the end of Amelia and Tommy's tale, but not yours. If you loved this ending, you need to subscribe now to catch the next exclusive stories we have lined up for you. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm, and let us know what you think. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Until next time, stay safe and keep your curiosity alive.